Hello! Welcome to the afternoon session of the Fabricator Live. We'd like to thank Facebook for making their feed available to us without charging us anything. Last day of FABTECH, Thursday, September 16th. Happy Mexican Independence Day.
Yeah, nice.
I'd like to welcome my guest today. Sitting to my right, immediate right, Tim Heston, Senior Editor of the Fabricator magazine, Kate Bachman, Editor of the Stamping Journal, and Don Nelson, Editor of the Additive Report. We're going to talk about some of the things these people have seen at FABTECH, walking around, talking with some of the movers and shakers of the industry, both technology, industry, gossip perhaps, scuttlebutt, and generally get a feel in terms of what's happened. Earlier today at our 11 o'clock Fabricator Live session, we spoke with Amanda Carlson, Eric Lundeen, Amanda Carlson of the Welder, Eric Lundeen of Tube and Pipe Journal, and Josh Welton of Brown Dog Welding. Kind of focus on the welding industry, a lot of conversation about cobots, robots, skilled labor, how those two fit, how automation can help out shops maybe who are not having the greatest success finding those skilled welders. And Eric obviously had input about the tube and pipe industry, and we got good response from the two people in the industry who followed it on Facebook. From a general sense of the fabricating pavilion, Tim, anything catch your eye that really stuck out?
Oh, a bunch of technologies. Everybody's so happy to be back at the show. But the biggest thing that stuck out to me, I spoke to a lot of attendees, and obviously they're happy to be here, happy to be back, but they're extraordinarily busy. And it seems over the pandemic, the industry really has, we've reached a turning point with automation. There's more pick and place, part sorting automation here than I've ever seen. And it's proliferating throughout the industry from what the fab shop's telling me. And people are automating simply because they can't find anybody. They just literally cannot find anybody, and so they're automating to avoid having to hire. Because having to hire is just ridiculous. There's just nobody around. And so that's the chief concern. And the biggest rumbling I've seen at this show has to do with AI. AI is just kind of foundation under which everything I think is going to change within the next decade. It seems to be kind of a tidal wave that's going to happen over the next 10 years, especially the long tail of small fab shops. 10 years ago we heard about AI and everybody said, yeah, that's nice, how do I get parts out the door? Now they're saying, wait a minute, AI is going to help me get parts out the door. And so it's finally, especially with the cloud, it's going to.
Can you offer an example, like a real fab shop example?
Well, real fab shop example probably would be our April cover story, for instance. OSH Cut in Utah. They have automated ordering, and they've shrunk the order to cash cycle by weeks by having. Basically, a fab shop uploads, a customer uploads a SolidWorks file or IGES file or any 3D CAD file, and clicks yes. They have an instant quote based on the material price, and it goes right to the shop floor within minutes. And it's integrated in multiple machine brands, and they have different machines, different systems talking to each other, and he's really tackling that long tail of underserved fab shops that, hey, it's a way to scale up these long tail of small, low volume orders.
Yeah. So Kate, you're covering the stamping industry. Our friends over in the Lakeside Center. Very beautiful view of the lake over there.
Yes.
But business taking place as well. A lot of large machinery, even though maybe some of those guys weren't there with actual presses. But similar issues, similar challenges. What did you see over there that caught your eye?
Dan, what really strikes me is that I felt that I was witnessing in real time the adaptation of manufacturers to the events that they have just experienced with the pandemic, with the supply chain disruption, and with the skilled worker shortage. And so the OEMs are reacting, the stampers are reacting. To give you an example, I saw a real proliferation of OEMs who are offering virtual reality or extended reality products that are helping the stampers to be able to kind of look into their presses remotely, to be able to see what kinds of problems they're having remotely, and also to be able to sort of like size a press in their shops without actually having to move the physical press into the plant. There are, a lot of tools that are being developed to be able to kind of do a lot of the preliminary work and alleviate some of the problems with, all the things I just mentioned, the supply chain disruptions and the need to work remotely, to do some things remotely and have that kind of access remotely. So that was probably, one of the really standouts that I saw over there.
Yeah.
And that's another issue, is the supply chain disruption. There's a record number of raw stock inventory sitting in fab shops, especially progressive fab shops. So they need to move that inventory as fast as possible through the shop floor, from cutting, bending, welding, out the door within days. And the shorter the order to cash cycle can get, the more profitable the shop can be. And right now they need to have so much raw stock that if they don't get it out the door, they're going to be out of cash in a hurry, because you can't pay payroll with inventory.
Well, speaking of materials, that's another point that I wanted to bring up. So, stampers are really having to deal with higher strength materials, and they said thicker materials. And so, again, I'm witnessing real time how manufacturers are adapting to that and reacting to that by developing, better lubricants, better coatings, better, presses that are able to be more flexible in working with those kinds of materials.
And what was cool is in one conference presentation, there was a AI-based sensing device that was demonstrated that you listen to the stroke of the press, and a certain acoustic signal said, yep, that part is good, or it's not good. And then that's fed in and fed into the AI engine, and it's another way to monitor a process. So it's kind of neat.
I have a question. If you have a thicker piece of material that you're going to stamp, do you have to get like a more powerful press?
In some cases, but in some cases, that thicker, especially the stronger, the tougher materials, can be more brittle and less formable. So there has been of course, for a long time, a real development and a surge in servo press technology, servo-mechanical, servo-electric, servo-hydraulic, and that just kind of offers the opportunity to make the impressions in the metal, at a slower pace, and allow the metal to flow, to avoid, so many of the problems that occur when the presses, break through the metal.
Yeah, and if you have questions, please let us know. Reach out on the comment line.
On the comment line.
Now, Don, different perspective a little bit. You're here covering additive manufacturing and technically a separate show, but co-located. TCT Rapid Show. What did you see? And that's an industry that's really, it was rapidly changing even before the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's starting to ramp up. There was like a stasis during COVID. Not much product was coming out. I had to scramble to get things to write about, frankly,
Right.
New technology. But what I did is I spent almost all of my time at the Rapid and TCT show, and the people that I talked to, they were having many of the same problems with finding people, and finding people that they felt were motivated, and just finding people that were willing to travel, in some cases 40, 50 miles to work. But I did focus primarily on technologies, and I noticed 5 basic themes while I was over there. I tried to organize them. The first one is big 3D printers. There is this real trend in industry to make printers that are bigger, that can print bigger parts. The reason is fairly obvious.
Right.
You can print one large monolithic part. It's going to be stronger than stitching together 5 or 6 different parts into a big piece. And so while I was over there, some of the big printers I saw was Farsoon, which is a Chinese company. They displayed a metal 3D printer that could build parts up to 305 millimeters by 305 millimeters by 400 millimeters, which is big. It's 8 for a metal part. That's very big. Massive, they make polymer printers, and they have a very interesting technology. As you know, most of the layers are like very thin. What they lay down is a big fat gel. It's made out of polymer that has the consistency of toothpaste. It's unique in the industry, and the way it works is they lay down the gel, and it's followed by a UV LED light that hardens it instantly. And the machine that they had here, which is the 5000 series, it has a work envelope of 57 by 44 by 70 inches. So 70 inches, that's almost 6 feet tall. I mean, it's huge. It's very huge. And the last large printer that I saw was at the Thermwood booth. It's their 510, and the 5 is for 5 feet by 10 feet. So, reportedly, this is the largest 3D printer ever at Rapid. I don't know, but it comes from a reliable source. That's all I'm going to say.
Reliable. All right.
The other side of that coin is small 3D printers. There was a couple exhibitors there that makes parts or printers for small 3D printers. The one that I spent the most time with was Boston Microfabrication, BMF. It's a resin. They can print resin and ceramic, and they are for making parts in the millimeter range, like MEMS devices, microfluidic devices. They make little screws, and their newest machine has a resolution of 2 microns, or 2 millionths of a meter. And if you want to make a small part, you have to have a very tiny resolution, which they're doing. Another thing about Boston Micro's printer is that it's an open source printer in terms of material. It's one of the things that has been holding additive manufacturing back is that the manufacturer of the printer, you often have to buy their material. So I mean, that would be like saying, I'm going to buy a machining center, and then the builder says, well, you have to buy all of your 4140 steel from me.
Right.
You're going to be very unpopular, and you're not going to sell very many machining centers.
And that dovetails into the interoperability issues that we're facing. There was a keynote, they've automated the mobile robots, that there's a committee trying to make all the mobile robots interoperable. And that's an issue with all machines, trying to connect all the machines to make it as plug and play as possible. So that's a great point.
No, and something like that, I would imagine you would have to have a lot of computing power, depending on what size your factory is. But if you're running 50 machines, you've got 10 CAD stations, 10 CAD chairs. I mean, that's a lot of power.
What's interesting, computing power is not the issue, because thank you, Amazon. Amazon Web Services.
Web services.
Yeah, we have shops. In fact, Sencut. Right. We have a few shops out west. Sencut Send actually is working with Amazon Web Services on some of its platforms. But the compute power out there for certain applications is just amazing.
So, speaking of software, what if I said that I think there's going to be a major fabricating technology provider that's going to have a new release of their software that will be open to other makes of machines.
There you go.
So it's happening.
There you go. So
it's a good source.
Yeah,
that's right.
Good source. Is it reportedly? Is it a reliable?
There you go.
Pretty reliable, I think.
Yeah.
I think all this stuff's coming together in a way. So did you want to add anything else?
I can go on.
There you go.
I can also stop.
No, but let me ask you this. So, a lot of talk about the advanced technology. uh, fabricators, it seems to me they came here to buy equipment, talking to people.
Oh yeah.
Or they must be open to it, right?
Well, yeah. I've passed several booths. They said, "My goodness, yes, the attendance is a little down for obvious reasons, but the quality of attendance is amazing, and people are buying. They're buying because they can't find people. So that's the bottom line. There's several booths I stopped by and said, "Listen, we've sold every machine we have." It's pretty amazing. But that same theme of skilled labor is underlying it all, because all the machines in the world won't solve your problems.
Right.
And actually,
Still need some people.
Neil's still need some people. And I actually stopped by
goodness.
quite a small booth down this way called Deep No. It's kind of a cool. It's Deep No. Deep No it too uses AI, but in a totally different way. It allows manufacturers to record their, let's say, old timers, because all these old timers are about ready to retire. Well, they know things that nobody else in the factory knows. Well, let's video them and talk with them, and let's spread their knowledge. And so this company is giving fabricators, giving anybody the tools to record specific processes. Could be job-specific processes, could be broad technology fundamentals, and making it easy to upload. And then they actually have an automated video production platform to help spread knowledge, which I think is huge. It's so huge because there's a huge brain drain in this industry. So I talk to readers about button pushers, and button pushers can be dangerous. Given the right equipment.
Well, danger.
The danger.
There's dangers in the stamping industry. Yeah. I mean, you hear similar things, Kate?
So, going to your point about automation, certainly many of the attendees I talked to have expressed a need for a real interest in automation to kind of alleviate, some of the problems, and also just, use of cobots and, some type of collaboration. And that goes back to that virtual extended reality, that whole thing, so that those with the tribal knowledge can transfer their knowledge to those on the plant floor,
right? If
they can't be there. So certainly that's an issue. But to your point, Tim, about the interest in buying, equipment, that has actually been pretty robust in the metal forming and stamping area too. And in fact, I too talked to a press manufacturer who sold almost everything in their booth, and it was a pretty large booth, and said actually wrote a check for the press system right there and there.
So they sold them off the floor?
Right off the floor.
Yeah, I've heard about another exhibitor that had somebody write down a
physical
down
check.
payment.
Yeah,
like the check binder, like you see on TV.
Yes.
Like you literally open that up.
Oh my.
So the interest and the demand is there, and I do think that the people who are coming here are really those in a position of making purchasing decisions, and those on the plant floor, for safety reasons or concerns about their health, are staying there. But those who are coming are making decisions.
Yeah. So, do you hear that in the additive manufacturing space, Don, in terms of people needing equipment, or is that particular space more of like people still trying to figure out how they might best use the technology, and the immediacy of impact is maybe not at forefront of their mind. They know they're planning for the future.
I think that there's a little bit of a stall going on, because additive is more of a less well-known technology. Right now, in order for additive manufacturing to make the leap into the next step or up to the next step, it's going to have to penetrate conventional manufacturing facilities.
Right.
And right now, coming off of COVID, conventional manufacturing facilities, if they're buying equipment, they're buying conventional equipment. So they're not really looking at additive at this point.
Right.
But the ones that are looking at, you can now buy for $5,000 to $10,000, which isn't a tremendous amount of money, a desktop style plastic printer. And you can make jigs and fixtures and gauges and things like that. And it's intriguing, and particularly as industry, we in manufacturing are trying to attract younger people. I was talking to a guy, and he said at our plant we've installed a couple of additive manufacturing machines, 3D printers.
Right.
And he said we just left them there, and young men and women particularly, if they had time, they would just go and fool around with them. And I think that's a clever way to start a program.
And you mentioned the printing of jigs and fixtures. There was another theme at this show, which was the acceleration of the prototyping process, because there are so many new part program platforms. It's kind of, it's people are thinking anew after the pandemic and launching businesses. In fact, there are a lot of new business launches that I'm seeing here today. And so so printing jigs and fixtures dovetails right into the need to prototype very quickly and then graduate that prototyping to production, which was a big.
So I think we have a comment from our.
Yeah, one comment is, when John and I were down in the additive space, all the major automakers got together for a panel discussion to talk about standardization around additive manufacturing.
Right, standardization,
So there's
interoperability, standard plug and play. It's becoming more and more important.
Gareth Slayer's commenting on a panel he sat in on. He's our digital editor, speaking about the automakers, talking about standardization.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because automakers are in that kind of between a rock and a hard place in general in terms of the transition to electric vehicles as well, where they are competitors, but they are finding that they really have to lay down their swords and collaborate and partner on some of the major colossal costs of that kind of transition. So it is an interesting kind of time when automakers are competing but also collaborating.
Right. Well, if you're talking about catering to an up-and-coming generation and also automaking, those are two powerful influencing demographics. And I think, particularly as you're talking about young people and additive, we've seen it, I think, particularly over the last 5 years, where there's more introduction of redesigns of HMIs, even to the point with some of these cobots we were talking about earlier today, where they're actually being programmed with tablets, apps that are developed for a tablet or a phone.
Right.
And people were, it's not that big a deal. In fact, they probably expect it.
And some robots are not being programmed whatsoever. So you have
Right.
You have Omni Robotics, which uses digital twin technology and sees the powder coat part in front of it and says, "All right, that's what it is. I'm going to paint it."
Yeah.
And it's just pretty amazing.
Yeah. So,
I'd like to just backtrack a second here to something that you've mentioned a couple times, Tim, about artificial intelligence. And a thing that's very appealing and you were talking about design iteration, is generative software.
Yeah.
And it's software that it helps you iterate instantly. Like you can come up with thousands of design iterations in hours. And I was wondering, it's expensive and it takes a lot of know-how how to use it. And so not a lot of people do use it. But I'm wondering, at larger companies that you deal with, and you deal with much larger companies than I do generally, have you heard about them using generative design or any activity in that area?
I think it's probably more common in the automaker at the automaker level, and maybe some of the tier ones, the very large tier ones. They don't talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
But
that was a core to Paperless Parts keynote a couple days back. Was they were preaching the importance of iterative design on the fab shop level, even at 10, 15 employees, being able to upload various parts, quote it instantly, and they're not the only company that does this, and you can also do in-house versions as well that I've seen across the industry. But the faster you can make that process so that their customer can iteratively design again and again and again to see if it works. And the more people communicate too, because the fab shop can say, hey, that's a great design, but you can also, especially if it's a prototyping department of a larger fab shop, they can say, yeah, and how will this work in production? How will this work? And I've seen several small machines actually here. Mata has a small machine, perfect for a prototyping arena, education as well, which is another big push. But that you have that in a separate prototyping area. But the faster you can get that process, the more successful a fab shop can be.
Yeah. Observations coming back after 2 years.
It doesn't seem like I ever left. I don't know. It's like riding a bike, you know? It's like, okay, yeah, we're back. I mean, you know, with masks. You know, that's all right. That's cool.
Okay.
Uh,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's all right. So just in general impressions are it's a robust show, not, you know, quite in terms of the attendance and exhibitors that we have experienced in the past, but we're here, and I think everybody who's here is happy to be here and felt that they needed to be here.
Yeah.
Very.
Don?
Yeah, I would say this is the second industry event I've gone to. I went to the AMUG show, which is
Right.
the Additive Manufacturing User Group show in the spring. And what I'm finding is, I don't know if it's people in additive manufacturing are just a gleeful group, but they're so happy to be back together and
Right.
talking about 3D printing. And, you know, if we have to wear a mask, we don't care. We'll just talk through the mask. It's I've been very happy with how people are feeling. It's just like this kind of can-do attitude.
Yeah.
It's an excitement. We've been through what we've been through, and it was a big dip down for so many, but boy, a roar back for most. And it's just incredible how busy a lot of shops are.
Yeah.
So to have this many people when shops are this busy, but they need machines.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at the PMI. Look at how much manufacturing is doing, how well it's doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Depends on
the,
the
you know, and they have an eye out toward the immediate future because these machines will not be delivered anytime soon. A lot of this stuff's going to be months down the road before they get
Well,
it.
it depends on the vendor you talk to.
Wow.
I think
You
that
have a good source too, dude.
it's very reliable.
They have a very reliable source.
And I
Well,
think
I
it
was
really
talking-
goes back to, you know, what my initial comment, sorry Don, was just that, you know, really the manufacturers who are still here have learned to adapt to whatever the circumstances are.
Right.
Be it pandemic, be it, you know, just supply chain disruption, whatever it is, they figure out a way to make it work. And, you know, that's what it's really all about.
Any predictions on the next crisis in manufacturing? Earlier, we were stuck between sentient robots and super smart apes.
I think there will be a dearth of journalists.
We had dearth of journalists. We have a hoarding of metal. So and since everybody's buying high, I'm sure they'll be happy to sell low.
There you go.
So the crash is coming. I don't know. They don't think it's coming anytime soon, but it's an honest gamble, and people are nervous.
Yeah, no, so yeah, if you follow the folks at Steel Market Update, they do a good job, and I think they provide us with some, not necessarily day-to-day updates, but you know, they're not seeing this thing come into a huge correction until maybe 2022.
Right,
So, and
right.
then you're dependent on steel companies actually kind of starting up their capacity that's coming online, and you know, they have found reasons not to do it in the fourth quarter. So a lot of anxiety, I think, right there. But in all honesty, referring to our "What Keeps You Up at Night" survey, we're still worried about that, you know, the worker situation. Trying to find the right people.
It still comes down to people and culture.
Yeah. So good people up here. Thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Gareth, any comments we should address? This probably is the most serious discussion we've had.
I know, it's ridiculous. Sorry.
We'll close this. Please log in with a simple answer. If you're eating at a restaurant, do you ask the waiter his first name and then repeatedly use it as you ask for things in the meal? Please let us know. We're trying to determine what exactly etiquette we should be following. So,
That's as
Let's
we
see.
adapt to going back to trade
yes,
shows
wait
after
up. I
that.
had plugs. We have the annual meeting coming up March 1st through 3rd in Miami. There's something else that I was going to address. I forgot. But anyway, so thanks for joining us. We enjoyed doing it. Hope you enjoyed watching it, and have a good day.
All right. Thank you.